Endeavor Horizon of the Infinite. Endeavor to Push the Limits, Part 2. By Elton Garr. Edric felt more exposed than he had for years. Until now, no one on the Endeavor had any reason to suspect he was anything but a spirit keeper. But Rian Toma could expose him. But he wouldn't do that without good reason, because he couldn't tell Edric's secret without revealing his own. Edric was in the same difficult position. He couldn't warn the crew about who Rian was. So he'd have to pull out all the stops. The first thing he did was attach a PTE-4 listening device to the outside of the door and stood there for the seconds it took to burrow into the metal of the door. With that done, Edric went to the mess hall. Ideally, he would speak to Tabitha, since she would be working with Rian, but she wasn't in the mess. So he walked over to the cooks and said,
"Is there anything useful I can do today?"
It had taken him about a month to convince the cooks that it wasn't rude to let the ship's chaplain wash dishes and clean tables. They were actually helping. Humility was an important part of being a spirit keeper. It was also useful for his job as a Nexa agent, because the same people who would stop talking if Edric walked up to them as the ship's chaplain would keep talking while he was cleaning the table. And the snippets of conversation he could overhear let him keep track of everything that happened on the Endeavor. Most things he already knew. That was the secret of intelligence. Getting information was never the problem. It was all about how you used it. But outside of hearing rumors about Rian, he also got a good feeling for the morale of the crew. It wasn't bad. But it also wasn't great. Almost everyone knew someone who had died when the ship had been attacked. After a couple of hours of serving drinks, picking up food, Edric was comfortable that he had learned everything he could. He wandered through the hallways, moving slowly. Other people on the ship could afford to look like they were in a hurry, but it was vital people feel free to interrupt what the spirit keeper was doing to chat. While walking, he saw Tabitha moving in the opposite direction from what he would have expected. He focused on body language, knowing what Tabitha would expect, and gave her a confused smile as he said,
"I would have expected you to be on the bridge."
A fleeting smile crossed her face, and she said,
"I'm to focus on the defense of Rian. Besides, autopilot could reach our destination safely."
"And it lets the lower-ranked officers get command time."
Eric said.
"You sound like the captain."
"I hear things. And people are excited to sit in the chair, even if that's all they do. But I'm more interested in the case. Do you have a defense planned?"
He had 6 bottles. "My defense is that this is all pointless, and he pays their fine and we all move on,"
Tabitha said.
"I see 2 problems with that."
"What are those?"
Tabitha asked.
"Dr. Ramsey and Rian Toma,"
Edric said, and from the look that Tabitha gave him, it seemed fairly clear she knew something. Her augmented senses weren't a secret, but no one besides Tabitha knew their limit, and he knew it was possible that she overheard Rian saying he knew Edric.
"The doctor only cares about her career. Any victory will look good on her record. And why wouldn't Rian take a deal that just cost him a few hundred credits?"
"In my capacity as your spiritual advisor, I'd suggest that people are often more complicated than they appear. And Rian is no exception to that, so be careful,"
Edric said.
"You know my history. More of it than you should. So do I seem like someone who is easy to manipulate?"
That wasn't what he had suggested, but it was what he was thinking. Still, he said,
"I know you worked undercover for years, and are the person on this ship who was least likely to fall for a few flattering words and a charming smile."
That left 2 important points out. First, least likely didn't mean unlikely, and secondly, Rian liked a challenge, so while she might be the least likely to fall for his games, she was the most likely to be the target. But Edric had warned her as directly as he could. Edric had assumed he'd need to expend resources to observe the trial. He even considered that he might need to use the captain's command override passcode he had stolen. With that chip, he could give any order he needed to the Endeavor's AI. Using it to get a transcript to the trial would be trivial. But while it was untraceable, he wouldn't be able to use it again. Luckily, the captain had decided that the crew was bored and needed some entertainment. That hadn't been how he described it, of course. He had talked about how open trials were a cornerstone of justice, and that the only way to ensure people trusted the system. He was probably right. So Edric sat in the back of the meeting room, along with a handful of other people who had come to watch the trial. The captain took his place at the front of the room. He glanced around and said,
"This hearing is to determine if Rian Toma should be turned over to Vitalis Health Consortium for trial. They accuse him of theft of medicine through illegal sales. I am not determining guilt or innocence, only whether he can be held by them. If he is given to Vitalis Health Consortium, they will be required to have a trial that meets the basic legal standards of the Commonwealth, including those of impartiality. As the highest-ranking official available, I will be the judge. Rian Toma has agreed to allow the second-ranking officer on the Endeavor to work with him in his defense. And Dr. Ramsey will represent Vitalis Health Consortium's interests. I would prefer to avoid all of this. Have you been able to come to an agreement?"
Tabitha stood up, gave an irritated look to the doctor, and then an even more irritated look to Rian and said,
"There is no agreement, and I do not believe one is possible."
The doctor agreed, and the captain looked more annoyed than he should. He couldn't have actually believed they were going to come to a compromise. Tabitha stood and said,
"My client would like the charges dismissed as the contract and Commonwealth laws do not exist outside of its borders."
The doctor stood up and said,
"The contract clearly says in perpetuity, and throughout this and all other universes.
And at such a time that they catch my client inside the Commonwealth, they could certainly try him there."
Tabitha said. The captain looked at Tabitha and said,
"You know the Endeavor's charter includes the following of all Commonwealth laws. But even if it didn't, I won't ignore the law on this ship for convenience or even personal preference. If he broke the law in a meaningful way, then I will hand him over and let the legal system determine what happens next."
Tabitha gave Rian a look Edric read, "As I told you so." But either she didn't understand the actual point or she didn't care. Because Rian clearly wanted this discussion to be about anything but if he broke the law or not, because he almost certainly did.
Which is our second point. The contract explicitly states that the Grentadine cannot be sold. Is there any evidence that my client received any type of currency for the medicine? Currently, all the evidence is a handful of bottles he still has possession of.
It is likely he was not paid directly. This is the frontier. But barter is still sales. So if he received anything of value, including lodging, food, and other services, then he broke the contract and the law."
The doctor said. The captain frowned and glanced around the room. He clearly didn't like how this was going. But the doctor was right. If you could barter with the medicine, then the entire contract would be unenforceable. The captain met the doctor's eyes and said,
"A valid point, but it does not answer the question. Do you have any evidence that he sold, traded, or even gave medicine freely to anyone? So far, all we know is he has a few bottles of Grentadine."
"I have witnesses to the crime."
"I doubt it. People on Trexan love me,"
Rian said, leaning back in his chair.
"So you're admitting to the crime, but do not believe they would speak truthfully?"
The doctor said.
"No, I'm just saying, people like me. And they won't lie about someone they like."
Rian said. Not the best tact if you actually wanted to prove your innocence, but Rian knew his audience well.
"Luckily, they are not the witnesses." The VHC representatives that were tracking you witnessed the crime.
If I ever broke the law, not that I would, I'd never do it in front of VHC.
Rianne said.
They were using surveillance devices, of course. Which also means there are recordings.
Are your witnesses here?
The captain asked.
They are in their rooms. I will need to prepare them to testify.
The doctor said.
Then before that, I would like to question Rianne Toma,
Tabitha said. For the first time since he was an agent recruit, Rianne Toma looked surprised. That bothered Edric more than he cared to admit. He had taught Rianne better than that. But while he held his own reaction better, he understood the surprise. Tabitha may have her own agenda. If she did, that could be bad for Rianne and Edric.
You want me on the stand?
Rianne asked.
Do you have a better idea?
Tabitha asked. Rianne sighed and walked up to the makeshift witness stand. The only thing unusual about it was a small device that he put his hand on. That would allow the Endeavor's AI to monitor his vitals and tell if he was lying. And that would make things simple enough. Rianne never would have been allowed past the recruit level of training if he couldn't keep his heart rate neutral while lying through his teeth. Edric remembered that training. 5 people yelling questions at you, forcing you to keep 5 distinct threads of lies going at the same time while getting electric shocks if you set off the lie detector. Then being kept awake for a 5-hour training session and doing it again. He had been kept awake for almost 60 hours the first time. And they had caught almost every lie. Everyone failed the first time and the second. He had only known a couple of people to pass the third time. Rianne was one of them. The system took a few minutes to calibrate, then the Endeavor said,
Baseline readings are clear. I will only interject if there is a lie detected. But this tests only emotional reaction, so it is possible to trigger without lying and to lie without an emotional response. It is simply difficult.
They all knew that, but while this wasn't exactly a trial, it was a legal proceeding and the records needed the warning. Tabitha then stood up and said,
Rianne Toma, you are accused of stealing medicine. Did you steal medicine?
I am not a thief.
Rianne said. That was emphatically a lie. He had stolen many things and been trained to do it well. But the Endeavor didn't say anything. So he had passed the simplest part of the test. That wasn't surprising. Nexa Corp lie detectors were the best in the Commonwealth. But the captain said,
Please answer the question as asked.
Rianne looked at him and said,
I bought the Grentadine legally. I've got the contracts to prove it.
Good. Then how did the people of Trexon get Grentadine?
I gave it to them. The cost is nothing compared to what I can sell them later.
So you were paid by them. But your claim is that it wasn't for the medicine.
The doctor said.
That's right. I could have charged them, sure, but with how things are out here, it didn't sit right. Besides, it would be breaking the law.
Rianne said.
Great. We're almost done here. But there is something else that needs cleared up.
Tabitha said, and she glanced at Edric. Then she said,
Did you know anyone aboard the Endeavor before your arrival? And was being brought onto the Endeavor part of your plan?
I never met anyone from the Endeavor before arriving.
Rianne said. Tabitha waited a moment for the Endeavor to say he was lying. And she wasn't entirely wrong to do so. She knew he was lying, but more than that, if he let the Endeavor catch him lying now, it would make his other statements seem more true. It didn't say anything, so Tabitha said,
Endeavor. Please verify the truthfulness of that statement.
There is no physiological sign that Rianne Toma is lying.
And the second half of the statement?
The captain asked. Rianne said,
Truthfully, I'd rather not answer that.
Would you like to claim your rights against self-incrimination?
Adrian asked.
Coming here isn't a crime.
the doctor said.
Perhaps. It depends on why.
The captain said. Rian looked nervous again, but this time it was part of the show. Then he leaned forward, so that he was speaking closer to the microphone, and said,
I didn't intentionally plan to rendezvous with the Endeavor.
That is a lie.
the Endeavor said. There was some mumbling around the room, but Adrian simply looked at his crew, and they became silent. Then he said,
Would you care to clarify?
Fine. What the corporations are doing out here is wrong. I'd heard rumors the Endeavor had a captain who might actually see that. And I'm sure VHC and the rest of them don't want the Commonwealth or the colonies finding out. So yeah, I'm willing to risk my life to expose it.
It was a terrible legal tactic, and the best thing that Rian could say to get Adrian on his side.
Well then, this seems simple enough. VHC can't force you to keep this hearing sealed. So turn him over to us, and do what you want with the evidence you have.
Dr. Ramsey said.
Only if he's committed a crime. Currently, he's admitted to not liking your business practices. And while VHC may want that to be a crime, it isn't one yet.
Well, that settled which side the captain was on. The real question that was left was whether that mattered. The captain wouldn't just ignore the law. And if they had a recording of Rian selling the medicine, he'd be lucky if VHC gave him a show trial. But Rian showed no signs of being upset. As the room began to empty, Rian walked up to the captain to talk. Edric didn't bother to listen to what they were saying. It wouldn't be anything important. Rian would be far more interested in putting the captain at ease than having an actual conversation. And almost like clockwork, he saw Rian put his hand on the captain's shoulder. He then leaned in to say something in confidence. It would feel private and important, but it wouldn't be. Even the hand on the shoulder was little more than a distraction. It was his other hand that was important. And if Edric hadn't known it was coming, he would have missed the other hand slip into and out of the captain's pocket. Edric didn't see what Rian palmed, and it couldn't be anything big. But Rian grinned at Edric as he walked out. That grin was a simple message, but one that carried layers. It said that he knew Edric had seen it. And that he knew he couldn't do anything about it. But knowing Rian, it also said something else. Nexa attracted a specific type of person. Many of them would grin while planning to kill an entire ship's worth of people. Rian wasn't one of those. He had always avoided hurting people. To him, the best victories were the ones that didn't get anyone else hurt. That didn't mean he wouldn't do anything, but it meant the stakes were personal pride and perhaps his value to Nexa Corp. He wanted to follow Rian and ask what his plan was. Rian would probably tell him. But asking would be admitting Rian had beat him, and Edric had most of it. So he activated the listening device in Rian's door. After a moment he heard the door open and then shut, and then Commander Hester said,
Do they have the evidence?
Almost certainly.
Rian said, his voice not showing a hint of worry.
We didn't give the captain enough, not if they have a video of you. We can still make a deal. It won't be great, but the captain can put weight behind it. Require a fully public trial.
Agreements that you can't enforce. But I have this under control,
Rian said. Without being able to see them, Edric was limited in his deductions, but Tabitha sounded further away when she said,
This is when you explain your plan to me.
It's better you don't know. But when the time comes, get through the door.
What time?
You'll know. But I can't give you much time, so act fast.
Rian said. They talked a few more minutes, but as they did, Rian slipped back into his act. They discussed how they would win the case. But Rian clearly knew he wouldn't. This was something Edric hadn't considered until now. He was going to reveal who he was, or at least some part of it, to the Endeavor. Not just a rogue smuggler caught up in corporate politics, but one of the best spies in a corporation that specialized in intelligence. And one of the handful who had escaped. That left two questions. How would Rian escape the Endeavor? And why was an elite spy smuggling medicine to a backwater colony when he could be working for wealthy and powerful people or any corporation he wanted? When the trial restarted, Rian stopped next to Edric and said,
"You're slowing down, Chaplain. I would have expected you to make your move by now."
Who says I haven't?
Edric asked, and he let Rian pat him on the shoulder. But only because he had already taken everything useful out of his pockets. A few minutes later, the witness arrived. A tall albino woman who glared at Rian. But instead of Tabitha speaking to her, Rian stood up to ask the questions. Something he'd never do in a real courtroom.
"Do you work directly for Vitalis Health Consortium?"
Rian asked.
Yes. I hold the same rank as a nurse's aide, but I'm being trained for promotion.
"And capturing me would ensure that promotion. Even if I'm innocent."
Rian said.
You are guilty. We have video evidence of you selling medicine illegally.
"And why is that a bad thing?"
Because it breaks the contract you signed.
She said.
"That's why it's a crime. But that's not what I asked. Morally, why is selling medicine to sick people wrong?"
She glanced around the room. It was clearly an impossible question. She worked for VHC, so she couldn't question the idea of profiting off medicine without undermining the entire company.
VHC spends a great deal of money and resources developing Grentadine. They need a profit to develop newer and better medicine.
"And no one's stopping them from selling it,"
Rian said.
Please leave out the commentary, Mr. Toma.
Adrian said.
"Just how much is Vitalis making selling Grentadine to the people of Trexen?"
That isn't the point.
The woman said.
"You made it the point when you said Vitalis has to make a profit. How much are the lives of the people of Trexen worth?"
It's more complicated than that. They cannot currently pay, so there are contracts in place.
"Do you have a copy of that contract we could review?"
Rian asked.
I do not.
The woman said. Rian turned towards Adrian and said,
Luckily, I have a copy. I'd like the Endeavor to scan it, highlight the important points, and clear this up. I see no harm in that.
Adrian said. Rian pulled a chip from his pocket, and it took almost everything he had for Edric to resist telling them not to let him put that in the computer. But a few seconds later, the Endeavor simply said,
It is a sales contract for the people of Trexen. The price is approximately 100 times the standard price for Grentadine. The interest rate on the loans is above what would be legal inside the Commonwealth, and there is no method to dispel that debt. In addition, VHC can confiscate property for any debt, compel labor, or do medical experimentation on them in return for reasonable compensation.
That can't possibly be legal,
the captain said.
"We're on the frontier, Captain. Laws are just opinions out here,"
Rian said. Then he began to turn, winked at Tabitha, and the ship went black. In the silent shock, there was just enough time for Edric to move before he heard the door open. There was no light from the hallway, but just like Rian, Edric had memorized the room. He heard 2 sets of footsteps ahead of him, and he caught the door with his hand as it began to shut. It halted but didn't open, and he barely fit his thin frame through. Then, as soon as he was out, it slammed shut, and he heard the loud click and hiss of rooms being sealed. Rian had triggered an emergency lockdown, used to seal the ship in the case of a hull breach. After about 30 seconds of making his way down the hallway, the dim red emergency lights came on, and Edric ran. But both Rian and Tabitha, who was almost certainly the other set of footsteps he had heard, were younger and faster than him. By the time he reached the shuttle bay, Tabitha had her sidearm pointed at Rian, and he said,
"Override codes were on the chip. The lockdown will end in about half an hour, and I plan to be several light years away by then.
You lied to me,
Tabitha said.
Barely at all,
Rian said, putting his hand on his ship. Tabitha should have known better than to let him do that, but she was clearly upset.
So what was this all about?
Edric asked, and he walked over to the control panel for the shuttle bay doors.
Settling old debts mostly. And checking whether the new frontier power would be friend or foe.
Rian said, offering Tabitha his best grin.
Seems like you aren't foes, at least I hope not. Oh, and I left something else for you. Ask the Endeavor about it once it's back online.
Tabitha stood there for a moment, then fired her laser directly at Rian. His ship's shields blocked the shot, and Edric couldn't help but wonder if she knew those shields were on. As the ship rose, Edric tapped out the code to shut the door. But then he hit cancel. Edric had no reason to keep him trapped here. Tabitha was in the captain's chair when the Endeavor came back online. As soon as the lights came on, she said,
begin scans. If Rian left a trail, I expect you to find it.
Scanning,
Mick said. There wasn't anything else to do, so she waited until the captain rushed onto the bridge, then said,
Endeavor. Please play the message left by Rian Toma.
playing.
The Endeavor said. The calm voice of Rian said,
By now you've noticed there's no permanent damage to the Endeavor, nor should there be any harm to your crew. Everything Commander Hester and I presented at trial was truthful. I assume you can understand why I didn't stay. But I do have one last favor to ask. I left the rest of the Grentadine on an asteroid near the edge of the Trexan system. I trust you'll know what to do with it. And don't waste your time scanning for me. My ship has top-of-the-line Nexa upgrades.
Well, you heard the man. No point in wasting energy on scanning for him.
Adrian said as Tabitha got up, letting him take the captain's chair.
We should scan anyway. He might have made a mistake,
Tabitha said.
I suspect that Rian Toma isn't the type of person who makes that type of mistake. Besides, do you really want to catch him, or should we deliver that medicine?
That medicine is VHC property, and they won't be happy if we deliver it,
Tabitha said.
But it's not. Rian Toma bought that medicine, and it would only revert to their property if he tried to sell it. But abandoning it on an asteroid is perfectly legal, and I have no intention of charging the people of Trexan for it. Unless you have an objection,
Adrian said.
The doctor won't be happy,
Tabitha said.
She's fine. We couldn't leave the room. But since Rian fled, I decided in her favor. She won the right to take him into VHC custody. And they can't blame her for our security mistake.
Then he glanced at Tabitha and said,
Though I do have questions about that mistake.
The override is untraceable. I guess we'll never know if someone helped him or not,
Tabitha said. The captain seemed to consider that for a moment, then simply said,
Well, let's get that medicine to Trexan.
The trial episode is a hallmark of space opera that I have always enjoyed, as is the Smuggler Rogue. And I enjoyed mixing the two together in this universe. And yes, I intend to bring Rian Toma back. He's far too much fun to not have return from time to time. And when he does, perhaps some of the smaller questions in this episode will be answered. But until then, I hope you all enjoyed this and will continue to help me tell my stories by sharing this with other people who may enjoy it, as well as leaving a comment. Thank you. Elton Gar.